here. And so we do have a lot of questions, especially from my side. I have been following Busan, Malaysia, KLSC performance for many years. And actually, your interview in BFM, I think is second half of 2023, was so impressive to me because you mentioned about, by the time you were talking about explaining to everybody about the NETA, economic transition roadmap, energy transition roadmap, but you did talk about Tenaga. We seldom saw a YB or a minister will mention the name of a company in the media, and you were saying that Tenaga is undervalued. So I was like suddenly wake up. Why? Rafisi, I can call you Rafisi.
Yeah.
So why Rafisi is saying Tenaga is undervalued? Then we did another study on the NETA. Then we start to understand, the energy is important. So especially now we see all these AI data center. Then so it is from that until 2024 last year, Tenaga actually the share price went up like 50%. So maybe some of my audience, they would like to ask, is it Tenaga still undervalued, or what is going to happen on our energy sector?
You see, you're right. I mean, it's like I don't take positions on any counter. Nor do I have opinions about any counter. But what we do here is that we look at the overall economic structure, and then you figure out what are the policies that will be able to meet all the different competing demands. So let's start with energy. If you notice, the National Energy Transition Roadmap was, I think, among the first, if not the first, policy document from this government. Because the base of any competitive economy is basically the efficient availability, affordability, and security of energy. Especially if we were to go into the next level of value creation in our economy, it requires stable, affordable, and secure energy for the future. That's why among the first things we worked on was on energy transition, because if we continue with our previous practice and then we don't accelerate our pace towards a greener energy, we will be subjected to energy imports in the future, because we won't have oil and gas forever in this country. We don't have coal. We have to import coals,
We have to buy.
And the way that we were managing and planning for future energy capacity means that we may not be able to catch up with the demand. So that's why energy transition was very important. Having said that, we also understand then that Bursa is very much influenced by some counters, including Tenaga, because Tenaga is one of the most weighted, blue chip. So hence, focusing on energy transition by fixing it, making it more robust, definitely will benefit Tenaga, which in the long run will benefit Bursa, because when KLCI goes up, there's a lot of interest. It will bring back interest into Malaysia. And of all the sectors, energy was one of those more interesting sectors for investments in the last few years. And if you look at the amount of investments going by sector globally, at least between 2020 to 2023, most money actually went into energy transition. It wasn't into even conductors, even semiconductors. Right? It might have changed by now, but back then, you know that there is a tendency for investors around the world to invest into energy transition. So that gives a glimpse of when Ministry of Economy plans for something, we usually look at the structural issue, and then we try to make sure that whatever is designed, it is with the intention of strengthening the foundation, make it more robust. Because when it is more robust, especially for enabling sectors like energy, it will allow it to grow faster, and better growth mean better value in the future.
Yeah. It's a fundamental condition for the next takeoff.
Yeah.
But just now I capture a very interesting point that you give it out. Is that you say you were slowly going to the semicon industry for the time being. So what happened inside it?
Yeah, you see, we will always be subjected to the highs and lows and market correction for the next few years. In fact, I think for the next decade. But this window is very important, the next 2 or 3 years, because I think the conventional wisdom, and I agree with it, that AI is going to be here. All this science fiction that we grew up with robots and everything, with what has been happening in the last 2-3 years, it means that our infrastructure, knowledge, and technology will allow the compute power of semiconductor to function intelligently to do the kind of things that was not possible before.
Yeah.
Of course, the issue now is, okay, how much compute power do you need? How is this going to be controlled? How fast LLM is going to be developed? Those are, I think, just like stock price. It will go up, it will go down. But just like stock price as well, generally it's going up over the years. I think it's going to be the same thing about AI. It's going to be here. Therefore, Malaysia has to make a quick decision and capitalize on our first mover advantage, because we are a major player in semiconductor market in the world. The difference is that all these years we were doing, the second tier or the third tier activities in the whole value chain. Someone else designed the chip somewhere else, and then some foundries somewhere else, most probably in Taiwan or Korea. I think we have one in Singapore that does the wafer. And then when it's assembled, it comes to Malaysia, and then we do the testing and so on. And from here, we ship it to the world. I think we ship about 13% of global chip markets. Now there is an opportunity for us to go all the way up to the design. The reason we couldn't do this before, part of it was because that's just the way the global supply chain was designed, and we rely on big multinational corporations, and they designed the supply chain like that. Part of it as well because of the capacity and capability. Part of it is because the demand for chips in the past was not expected to be as big as it is in the future. Now, everything that we do require chips. Before smartphones and gadgets, chips was basically confined to just laptops or some mainframes. Now, you're talking about data centers, but over and above that, everyone lives with gadget now. And eventually, robots will come in. Our cars are more automated. All this requires chips. So much so that in the future, I think AI, compute power, will just be another form of utility in the same way that electricity is. When this happens, whoever that gets to design and manufacture chips of all forms, obviously we'll see much higher growth economically, and we become a major player in the global supply chain of chips. That is what the government means by driving our economy towards AI and digital and tech. It doesn't mean more Shopee, you know. If that's what people think.
You're actually talking about the national semiconductor strategy. So it's another document after this NATA. So that means our government now looking at energy sector and semiconductor sector. And so semiconductor sector will be the next major driver for our economic growth.
And that's also one major weakness of our economy. If you go to Bursa, you
wanted to ask this question, but we just mentioned about weaknesses.
Okay.
If you look at our capital markets, if you look at Bursa, we don't even have, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys know Bursa better than I do. I'm a traditional accountant. I don't play stocks because I fear losing money. But if you look at Bursa, right, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we have tech as a category. Do we?
We do have.
We do. But the kind of tax that we have in Malaysia is not apple-to-apple comparison with the kind of tech stock. For example, the ones that we have in Nasdaq or
far away.
It is very much basically digital product rather than tech, right? And part of it is because we just don't have enough companies doing it. And only lately, I think, apart from 2 or 3 semiconductor assembly companies, you got
Inari,
yes,
2 or 3. But we hardly have a lot.
I guess you are talking about the KLCI component stock, the 30 major stocks. Yes, we used to have Inari included. I think it happened first half of 2024 or second half of 2023. That was the first time we saw a tech company was included in this 30 component stock. It has been a long time. I think like 20 years since we look at Bursa.
Always bank, plantation, telco, property,
utilities. Yes,
right?
But we never see a tech company until Inari was included. But after that, Inari was kicked out. And we were so disappointed. We had been waiting for so long for some new or we call new blood. We try to we hope there will be more and more tech company included.
So, and that is a major weakness in our economy, not having a sizable number of tech companies that have been successful to go all the way to public listing and hopefully go all the way to KLCI,
become a blue chip.
Become a blue chip. That is, whether we like it or not, that is a major weakness. And without having those kind of companies, it means that capital mobilization into tech is going to be difficult because it has to rely on government's money and venture money still quite difficult. And that's why it's through national semiconductor strategy, through whatever we are doing, we need to capitalize Malaysia's position as the capital for data center in Southeast Asia now to push for more money, more companies into high-level semiconductor value chain, so that 7-8 years down the line, you start having these companies going for listing. That's our focus now.
Is it a very realistic challenge that we have? We have a very small domestic market. And we don't have the advanced technology in our country, and we don't have the fundamental for that. So how that government help us to overcome this?
And that's the beauty of, I think, AI. Why we get why we get excited about AI and data center and so on. it will be able, if policy is right, and with the right policy support, we can get the right player into it. It will solve those two constraints: a small market and basically technology and capability. When it comes to market, nobody can build or can have the ambition to go into semiconductor if you rely on your domestic market. It has to be a global
market,
playbook.
Yeah.
And we are already a major global player, basically, in semiconductor. We just need to go all the way upstream because the money is also upstream, more upstream, less downstream, right? And given the trade wars and how the world most probably is going to be more polarized trade-wise in the future, it makes sense that most countries in the world would want to have access to chips in the future undeterred by blocks. And that's why we have a big chance of doing that, especially given our geographical location, our open and non-aligned policy, because the growth center for the world is not necessarily aligned. You know, of course, you have China and you have US, but you also have India, you have ASEAN, you have Brazil, and even Europe for that matter. You have Africa. All these countries, as they adopt technology better, as they become more affluent, and therefore the demand for gadgets, smartphones, cars go up. These are all the future markets for chips. What we need to sort out is our strategy for technology. There are two ways of doing this, right? Either we say that, okay, let's focus on developing this ourselves, put in more professors, put in more. You and I know that is a mid-term and long-term game. We need to have a short-term game as well, so that these things can happen in parallel. And that's where I think we have, I think, a very good strategy to make sure that we have access to IPs and technology to open up the space for local player, either on their own or working with international player, to start going more upstream. And these are the candidates for future companies that can go into listing in the future.
Do you think you expect coming year will be a lot of good news in this landscape?
Yeah, I can categorically say yes. And I'm hoping that we will be able to provide and announce good plans for this. What we need, a few things. First, we need Malaysian companies to rise up and take up the challenge. We really need to break our, sometimes we are too humble.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is this from our startup or from our existing company?
Everyone.
Okay.
It's like if I were running a 500 million business now, right? And my business is generally domestic, whether they are plantations, whether it's utility, or even construction for that matter, right? I couldn't go overseas because that's what I know, and this is domestic. If I get this chance of planning and assessing international market, and I have now a means to access technology and start going into it because of there is a good policy support, if I were in the shoes of all these captain of industries, I would want to think, why not take the risk? And government can provide some policy support, put all the structure in place. But as with everything else, NATA, NSS, and IMP, we actually need our corporations and our businesses to rise up and say, we'll take up the challenge. If we are able to do that, I think the money will come, and we can improve our capital mobilization so that we can make sure that for the future, more capital goes into this kind of high growth, high value industry sector rather than trying to find a bargain or a slightly higher margin in existing industries that we have.
I think young startup have to fully aware.
Yeah.
What from YB say, right? There's a great opportunity. I think it's a new race for the technology landscape. Yeah.
You're not convinced. You're like,
No, I got questions. I try to put your points into a normal Malaysian investors can understand. Can I say, like, you talk about the data center is booming now, so a lot of investment were put into Malaysia, and the demand for like AI the GPU server is getting higher and higher. So maybe we can have some Malaysia company to participate into this, like maybe can they like make chips?
Okay. Let me paint an ambition, right?
Okay, an ambition.
An ambition.
Okay.
So I'm sure when people start their businesses, especially family-run businesses that eventually become giant corporation. The early founders, maybe in the 90s. I mean, take Robert Kwok. When the Kwok family started, I doubt they had ambition or they can foresee that 50 years down the line, I'll be running Shangri-La. And so, when they started, they look at an opportunity. In the 1940s, Japanese occupation and so on. So there was a lot of food rationing, and therefore supply of basic food becomes important. Sugar, rice, flour, and so on. That's how they started. But I think the common trait of a good businessman that eventually built empire is the ability to really look at an opportunity. And out of that opportunity, they go through the learning curve, they solidify their position. They always have the first mover's advantage. And then they don't get stuck in that. They don't get comfortable at that level. They always then go higher up and higher up and higher up. So we are more or less, if I tell you and share with, investors out there in the future, right? We actually have that opportunity now. What happens in the next 5, 10, 15 years depends on our risk appetite and our ambition. That's why I want to pin this ambition. No doubt, Malaysia now, I think we can claim ourselves to be the capital of data center for South Asia. The gap between Malaysia and other countries is quite big. It will be a while before anything can shift that. Data centers will go through a life cycle. At this stage of our data center development, the spillover effect to our economy is rather limited. Because a lot of it
So the industrial land price went up.
Is industrial land price. And then even if it's construction, is basically the outer physical infrastructure. What is inside the data center is mostly important. Even the design is important. The data racks are important. Even let alone the design of the chips and everything is all important. But imagine this. If we have the most number of data centers for the next 5 years in Malaysia, data centers will go through a life cycle. It creates a whole new supply chain and service industry around it. You need people who service this. You need people who eventually can design everything inside the data center from scratch. And obviously, eventually, all these chips have to be replaced. Or even the new ones will require chips, So there is that window of opportunity in the same way, I suppose, when Quark started, there was that window of opportunity. Our choice is whether are we comfortable and contented just to provide the land and build basically the factory. But the good thing is government has a clear vision. It's not going to happen overnight. In Malaysia, we take it for granted that oil and gas is a high-tech, a very difficult and capital-intensive industry to play with. I think that's the opportunity that we have in the next 5 to 10 years.